Morning guys, it's Wednesday and I got a quick mail call here this morning. I've already taken it out of the envelope and got her on the wall of fame here. We got Snow Crusher, so thanks Greg for the sticker. Appreciate that, buddy. Now we're going to get on to the project at hand. Yep, the fun never ends. So, we got the Super Duty in the shop today, which, you know, this is not a real big job and it's kind of a routine maintenance job, but this caliper is hanging up, and it's not the slides and it's not the pads, it's actual piston in the caliper, and it got real hot on me the other day and was smoking, and it was shimmying a little last night, and I've already taken it apart once and checked it out, and I did try and push the pistons in, and they're really hard to push in even with the bleeder screw out. So for some reason these Super Duties like to eat the driver rear caliper. I put one on it when I first got the truck 4 years ago, and here I am putting another one on it. And the rotors are crap, everything else, and the inboard pad on that one is just smoked. So here's what we got. We got a pair of rotors. I like to replace calipers in pairs, even though the other one is not showing symptoms of being bad. I'm changing it. I always buy the lifetime pads. These I won't have to pay for because they are warranted pads. These are CarQuest. I don't know what premium means. Premium means you get free ones when you need them. We got a jug of .3 brake fluid, and I've also grabbed, let's see, these are the brake hoses that hook the caliper to the hard line on the rear axle. So we got a driver and a passenger side of those. Sometimes these hoses can get old and start failing internally and work like a check valve and not let the fluid go backwards through a hose, so it'll make it so that the caliper will stick too. So this could also be a culprit, but it's hard to say. I'm not a brake expert. This is my method of troubleshooting and repairing. It's expensive. By the time you get your core deposits back on the two calipers, and if you're not buying the brake pads, if you're getting a warranted set, you're still at about $300. You could buy whatever brand you prefer, but this is where I have a house charge at, so this is where I get my parts. I might have paid a couple bucks more. You know, you could go to the box stores like AutoZone or Advance or O'Reilly or Pep Boys or wherever you go and probably pay a little bit less. But I found around here with the salt and everything, it doesn't pay to buy really cheap parts. You know, don't buy the economy brand because of the salt, because especially the rotors, they just don't hold up, and even the good ones don't hold up very long. You get about a year or two out of them, but the cheap ones, they'll fail in the middle of winter on you on these trucks sometimes with all the salt and everything and getting hot. You know, the hard face comes off of them. So we're going to try and put you guys a video together today on how to do this. So I'm going to get the truck up in the air and get it on jack stands and get the wheels off, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, what we're doing here, I've already done the driver's side, and I'm going to show you guys how to do the passenger side when it comes to changing these brake calipers and your rotors and your pads and all that stuff. So we're going to, first things first, if you want to come in here and we'll show them real quick. We're going to change this brake hose right here because it's old and it's not really brittle, but we want to change it anyway. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to remove this bolt that secures it to the caliper, and we're going to do that with the F250 Super Duty. You need a 14mm wrench or socket, and you can go ahead and loosen that up. And the reason we're going to do this first is because once you take the caliper loose, then it's flopping around and you won't be able to loosen it. Now, I didn't pre-loosen that and it wasn't very tight. The torque spec on that bolt is 37 foot-pounds, so we're going to go ahead and get this bolt loosened up. And since we are going to change the hose, I will go ahead and clamp with a set of locking pliers to minimize our loss of fluid here. If you were not going to change the hose, you could put a rag around that so that the jaws on the pliers don't bite that hose, and you could squinch it off that way. So we've got that fluid stopped. Alrighty, we're going to take the bolt out and get that removed from the truck. Alright, now the next thing we're going to do, if you want to come in over here, you're going to see that there are bolts that secure the caliper to the back of the axle. There's one here and there's one on the bottom, which you probably won't see, but that's right about where my hand is. We're going to go remove those real quick, and we'll bring you back once we got that off, and we'll show you how to tear the caliper down and inspect it. Alright, so we got the bottom one loose. This is a 18mm socket, and I'm using the impact. One thing to keep in mind, if you don't have any room for the impact to move back as that bolt comes out, keep your hands off the back of it or you'll smash your hand. So we've got that almost all the way out, and I'll just keep threading it out by hand here. The caliper will probably hang on there because it's rusty and crusty. So we'll take a pry bar and pry that guy off, and we'll just go set it on the tailgate, and we'll take a look at it. Come on over and we'll look at it. Alright, so we've got the caliper off right now, and I want to show you these brake pads. These are off the driver caliper that was hanging up, and there's almost no pad left here, and this was the inside pad that would rest against the pistons here. Okay, since it was hanging up, it just chewed this pad to death. And I'm going to show you the rotor itself, which I have over on the floor here. This rotor, if you look at the back of it, all the facing is coming off of this rotor right here, so it is garbage. And for the price of rotors and the limited material they put on them, it's almost not worth having to try and turn them. This one, it's got a lot of hot spots on it from where it got locked up. So it's junk anyway. So I'm going to show you guys how to go ahead and put your new pads inside your new caliper. So we'll move that out of the way. And the first thing that you're going to do, you've got these bolts that hold the caliper bracket onto the pins, and they'll pivot on those pins, slide back and forth. When they're brand new, they should be packed with grease in there. These slide really nice, so we know they're packed. These are a 14mm bolt, which I've already pre-loosened, but you guys can take your 14mm wrench and break those loose. We'll go ahead and take those out. And I'm going to spin it. You guys aren't going to be able to see it, but that's okay. We just got to spin that bolt out. Okay. Now, here's your caliper bracket where the pads sit. We're going to take a new set of clips. I'll open up the bag and show you guys what those look like. Those stainless steel clips are what the pads ride in. Okay, you see them? You kind of got that right there. Pay attention to how the old one comes apart, and you'll know how the new one goes together. But basically, they just snap into place. Some of them snap tight, some of them don't fit real tight. Okay. I'll take some of this product here. This is called Ultra Brake or Disc Brake Caliper Lube. It's like a, I don't know, a paste. I don't know if it's silicone based or what its base is, but I always use it, and we're going to put it on the surface, just a little brush of it there, because those can rust, and when that rust starts building up under those slides, it'll cause the brake pads sometimes to hang up. Not all the time, but it can happen. So we'll get those snapped into place now that we've got a little lube on them. Typically these clips don't rust. They're not expensive stainless, but they are stainless. Okay, now make note of the way that this goes onto the caliper. You've got your screw holes for the slides. Okay, so this is not the way. This is the way right here. And your pads will go in there this direction, so with the curve facing inward. And we're going to go ahead and I'll show you how to get those. Now that I've set this down, I'll probably pull the clips out, but we'll go ahead and slide those pads into their spot, and who knows, I might put them on backwards to start with. I tend to do stuff like that when I'm under pressure here. So go ahead and get your pads in there. And don't drink 10 cups of coffee in the morning when you're trying to do it, like I do. So there you go. The pads are in. And I may have put them in backwards, but nope, I didn't. They're in the proper way. Now, the pad that's on the same side as the caliper slide pins, take some of this quieting lube and paste the back side of that just a little bit. You don't need a ton of it. Dirt's going to stick to it anyway, but this helps with brake chatter. And I'll take a little bit. Not everybody does this. This is just my preferred method. Put a little coating on those. Now sometimes the pads will come with a lube. These did, but I like this product better. So we'll go ahead and pick this up and set it in there. Move it a little closer here for you guys. And that should set right in there, and then you can put your 2 bolts back in, and we'll bring you back once we get all that put together. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this rotor cleaned up. They put a coating on them to keep them from rusting in shipment, and we'll take some brake cleaner. I don't care what kind you use, just use some. Some guys will wipe them down with a lacquer thinner. A clean rag would be better than a dirty rag, but a dirty rag is what I got, so we're going to use it. It's usually a pretty thin coating, and that solvent in the brake cleaner will take it right off of there. So do that side and the inboard side. I don't know if you can zoom in on that and show them you can see that coating. That's what you want to make sure you get off of these things, because it'll glaze up a set of brake pads, and then you'll have brake fade problems sometimes, not all the time. If you forgot, it probably wouldn't ruin your day, but should clean it. And also clean, this truck has a drum brake type parking brake that rides around in here, so I always kind of clean those. I don't get real carried away with it, but it's probably a good idea to get that stuff off of there. So we'll go ahead and take this, trying not to get our fingers all over it, and we'll come on over here and we'll put this rotor on. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take this rotor off, and sometimes they'll get sort of hung up on here. So I'm going to grab a hammer real quick and I'll show you what might be hanging this up. Parking brake, oh, you stopped it, didn't you? And the parking brake will hang up on these, so if you want to come in here, I'll show you. You've got this lever right here that the cable pulls on. If you tap on it a little bit toward the relaxed side, which would be backwards on this, because that's the way the spring would push it, we'll go ahead and make sure that that's fully disengaged, and we'll get this rotor off of here. I don't know if that was enough or not. Let's see. Other thing you can do is give it a little tap. Since we're not reusing this rotor, we don't care if we mess it up. But that seems like that was pretty much enough to get it removed from the truck. and any debris that might have fallen in there, crust and whatnot. You probably want to make sure it looks okay in there, and this one isn't bad. So we'll go ahead and hang the new rotor. One thing to keep in mind, these rotors are hub centric. That means they ride on this surface. So if that's built up with rust, you need to clean that and possibly put a little bit of Never Seez or something on it. These have been off recently, so they're not really rusty. And there you go. This truck does need a passenger parking brake cable, and we could do that at any time. It's not going to be part of today's segment, so I'll grab the caliper and we'll go ahead and put it on because it's ready to go. Get a bolt in one hand here so I can get it started. And it helps if you put it on the right way. Spin it around there. Unless they gave me the wrong caliper and I didn't pay close enough attention, but I think we're good. If they gave you the wrong caliper, the brake bleeder screw would be on the bottom, which will never work. You'll never get air out of brakes with the bleeder screw on the wrong side. So we'll go ahead and put those two bolts in. I'll start them in with the impact, and we'll take the torque wrench and torque those to 128 foot-pounds per Ford's recommendation. And this job is 80% done here. The only thing we'll have left to do after we get this part finished is to go ahead and install the new brake hose. Oop. And it helps if you make the impact go the right direction. So we'll restart those bolts finger tight. And throw that under the truck so I can't reach it. I'll just go ahead and grab the torque wrench and torque them. Okay, so we've got a half-inch drive torque wrench here. We've got it set to 128 foot-pounds. And we're going to go ahead and tighten these down. And it's going to be a pain because we don't have a lot of room to work with here. Maybe we'll go for the bottom one and cut you guys loose for the top one. I got more room down here to swing a torque wrench and get my body in here to push on it. Hear the click? That means we're good to go. So we'll bring you back in a minute here, and we'll go ahead and torque these upper ones. Okay, this is a 3/8 drive torque wrench that we're going to torque the caliper pin bolts with. The spec on those is 27 foot-pounds. I don't know if you can see the markings on this. The lighting's not real good in here, but we've got it spun to 27 foot-pounds. So we hit the 25 and then add 2. Tighten this little nut on the bottom and it's ready to go. Doesn't take a lot of effort for 27 foot-pounds. But that's the spec. The other thing, these ends of the pins have a flat spot on them. You want to make sure that it seats down in the flat spot on the boss or the ear that's on the end of the caliper bracket. And those are good. Okay, and I'll get the bottom one. A lot of people do these by hand, and I used to do them that way. So that's good to go. So we'll bring you back when we're going to assemble the brake hose. Alright, so we're going to change the brake hose now. We got to take the old one off. I've already sort of assembled the new one. It's on the back of the caliper. But I've got an 11 millimeter line wrench. And we're going to finish unthreading this from the fitting. And it's going to be dripping brake fluid, so safety glasses or keep your face away from it because you're going to get brake fluid all over yourself. So we've got that out of there, and there is a 10 millimeter bolt that holds the bracket, which you're not going to be able to see, but I'm going to go ahead and finish loosening that. It wasn't overly tight, so. Okay, so now that's out. We'll go ahead and put the end of the brake hose up into the fitting on the hard line here, and we'll start to get that threaded in there before I put it into the bolt into the bracket and start tightening that up on the axle. It's just easier this way because you have a little flexibility. And so that you don't get it cross-threaded. So you'll start it that way. And now my hands are covered in brake fluid, so everything's slippery. I just want to make sure that it's turning nice and easy. And we'll go ahead and put that bolt back in there in the bracket, which of course you probably can't see. There's just no good angle underneath this truck to have camera guy underneath here. So we'll get that tightened down. Okay, that's tight. We'll finish tightening this fitting and we'll bring you back and I'll show you getting this torqued, and we'll talk a little bit more about that banjo bolt. Alright, so we've got the brake line on and secured. We're going to go ahead and check to make sure this is torqued tight enough, but I want to talk about this bolt a little bit. This bolt, you can barely see it, but there's a little copper washer under the head of it. Okay, and there's another one that you won't see at all that's on the opposite side of this block. You basically make a sandwich with those, and that is what seals this fitting. The torque spec on this is 37 foot-pounds. If you're doing front brakes, it's supposedly 27 foot-pounds, but we're just going to double check it here. I've already started to torque it just so it wouldn't leak all over. Okay, there we go. So that's tight. I'm going to take a wrench and I'm going to open up this bleeder screw and let the fluid start coming through. So I'll grab that wrench and we'll go ahead and get that going. That way when we go to bleed these brakes, which we'll show you, it's not going to take forever and a day for this caliper to fill up with fluid. It'll probably take a minute or so here, so we'll bring you back and show you that. Alright, we're back. I just closed this bleeder screw, but we're letting it gravity bleed, and when it's open, you can see the fluid's going to dribble out. We're going to start on the passenger side because it's the furthest away from the master cylinder in the brake system. We should not have to touch the fronts because we did not allow air into that part of the system. All the air is going to be from basically that hard line in through here and into the caliper. So my assistant's going to hop in the truck, and we're going to do it without the truck running because we shouldn't have to. And we'll go from there. Keep him off camera. He's a little camera shy. Unlock the door real quick. That way you can hear me. and basically I'm going to give my signals to him on what I want him to do. But he's going to pump the brake pedal. Go ahead and pump it up, Joe. All pumped up?
Yep.
You're holding it, so go ahead and hold it. And we're going to crack this bleeder open. And it's probably going to shoot some air out of it. See it spit a little bit there. Pedal go down?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and pump it again.
More?
Yeah, like 6 times. Okay, you holding it?
Yep.
Okay. Still holding it?
Yep.
You go down?
Yes.
Okay. Do it another round here. Hold.
Yes.
I'm not seeing any air come out there, so we're probably going to call this side good. I may go through it later, but we'll do the same thing with the other side, and we should be good to go. So we'll bring you guys back then. All right, one parting idea here. Make sure you fill your brake fluid up to the maximum position when you're all done. And also, we'll go show you the lug nuts. We're going to torque those down. Come on back. The torque spec on your lug nuts for these trucks for single wheel Ford Super Duty is 140 foot-pounds. We've run them down with the impact, but I always double check with the torque wrench. Hear the click, you know you're there. You want to have your hand on the end of the torque wrench, don't choke up on it. Put your center cap back on, line it up, and give it a swift blow, and it's on there. So before you drive away in the truck or the car, whatever you're working on, after you bled the brakes, make sure before you start up and drive away to get in here and pump that brake pedal a couple of times, make sure it's firm. I've seen guys take it and go to drive away without pumping them up. After just changing pads, maybe you haven't had the fluid system open, but just change pads and collapse the pistons into the caliper. First time you go to stop, your foot goes to the floor, and then you run through the garage door. So hope this helped you guys out and you learned something. Do a safe test drive around a parking lot or something, or a side street if you're working out of your garage at home, to make sure the system is functioning properly, and you guys should be good to go. So hope you enjoyed and have a good one.